Two women walked into a Las Vegas festival that promised to help them defeat aging, and they left on ventilators, in critical condition, and tubes down their throats so machines could be breathing for them. Their crime? They paid for a shot, an anti-aging peptide injection from a booth at a conference whose name literally translates to Revolution Against Aging and Death. When the investigators tried to figure out what almost killed them, they couldn't figure it out. They couldn't even get the vial to test it. I think that's where we're at right now in society, because peptides are the hottest thing in health, and almost nobody is telling you the truth about them. I'm Neal K. Shah. I'm a Johns Hopkins and NIH-funded caregiving researcher and the CEO of CareYaya. I've spent years helping thousands of older adults and family caregivers. I'm a caregiver myself. I cared for my grandfather through dementia and my wife through cancer. So when I tell you I made this video because I'm worried, I mean it, I am. And I'll be honest with you the whole way through, including about the few peptides that might actually be worth something. So first, that festival, and what those injections really were. Second, why the most powerful man in American healthcare just went on the biggest podcast in the world and changed the rules on these shots. Third, the brain drug that everybody was sure would work in 2025 and quietly failed. And fourth, the one that I need you to hear the most, the peptide that might already be sitting in your parents' kitchen cabinet right now. So if you care for someone older, an aging parent, or even a spouse, hit that subscribe button before we start. Everything on this channel is me cutting through all the health noise for caregivers out there and older adults with the research to back it up. Let's go. So let's start with the word, because the word is doing a lot of work now. A peptide is just a short chain of amino acids, the same building blocks that make up every protein in your body. Your body makes thousands of them. They're messengers. They tell cells when to grow, when to heal, when to release a hormone. That's it. Nothing exotic there. And that's exactly why the marketing now is so seductive. Oh, it's natural. Your body already makes it. We're just giving you more of it. So when you're 60 years old and your knees ache and your sleep is wrecked and the mirror is showing you things you didn't improve, that natural messenger that helps you heal sounds like an answer to a prayer. But here's the split that entire conversation hides from you. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. There are really three different things right now that people are calling peptides. And lumping them together is how people get hurt. Bucket number one is real FDA-approved peptide drugs. Insulin is a peptide. So are these GLP-1 weight loss medications, Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro. These were studied in tens of thousands of people in randomized trials, often over decades. So when your doctor prescribes one, you're standing on solid ground. Bucket two, compounded peptides. These are legal for a pharmacy to mix, but they're not FDA-approved as drugs. So the evidence is a little thinner. Some have a handful of small human studies, some have none. Bucket three, this is where those women in Las Vegas were. The gray market, vials that are sold online, labeled for research only, oftentimes shipped from overseas like China, with no oversight at all. A lab that tested thousands of these samples found that the amount of peptide in the vial frequently didn't even match the label. Some were just outright contaminated. Hold on to that, because the craze and the real surge is happening almost entirely in buckets 2 and 3 right now. The ones with the least evidence and the least oversight. Which brings me to why the rules just changed. In February 2026, the most powerful health official in America sat down on the most popular podcast on earth. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., that's the Secretary of Health and Human Services, went on Joe Rogan. And he announced that the government would move about 14 peptides off the FDA's restricted list, that is the do not compound list, and make it legal for pharmacies to prepare them again. BPC 157, Thymosin, CJC 1295, the whole greatest hits of the health and wellness influencer world. The internet just went off. Peptides illegal again. And here's why I need you to slow down, because this is the most misunderstood thing in the entire story. Moving a peptide from category 2 to category 1 does not mean technically that the FDA approved it. It does not mean the trial proved it works. It doesn't even mean it's safe. All it means that now a compounding pharmacy is allowed to mix it. That's it. That's the whole change. Legal to make is very different from proven to help. So remember that, keep that in mind. The marketing is betting that you won't notice the difference. And also another part the headline skipped. As I'm recording this, it hasn't even officially happened. This was an unofficial announcement on a podcast. The FDA hasn't even published the final rule. The advisory committee that actually decides this is scheduled to meet at the end of July 2026. So within weeks of you seeing this. So if someone is selling you a peptide on the internet right now and telling you it's FDA cleared as of this year, they're at best way ahead of the facts. And at worst, something much worse than that. So why would the government loosen the rules on compounds like this with no real human data? That's the deepest current in this whole story, and I think it's worth saying plainly. We are living through a collision of three forces: a longevity obsession in our society, an unbelievable power of social media influencers, and a real earned distrust of the medical establishment. I think a lot of people out there legitimately got burned by the healthcare establishment, by opioids, by drug companies that, didn't have any consequences. That anger is legitimate. But the irony that I can't ignore, some of the loudest voices demanding ironclad proof before you accept a well-studied medicine will in the same breath inject themselves with a peptide that has almost no human data at all. That skepticism only points in one direction. That should bother you no matter your politics. If this is already useful, do me a favor. Share it with one person out there who's a caregiver who's taking care of an aging parent. That single share does more good than you'll ever know. Now let's talk about why boost your growth hormone might be one of the most dangerous phrases in this entire trend. A huge slice of the peptide market is built on one promise: raise your growth hormone. CJC 1295, ipamorelin, tesamorelin, sermorelin. These are different names but the same pitch, and the pitch isn't crazy on its face. Your growth hormone does really decline as you age, roughly 14% per decade after 30. Doctors even have a name for it: somatopause. So less muscle, more belly fat, thinner skin, slower recovery. So when they say put your growth hormone back, it sounds like turning back the clock. But here's what they don't put on the growth banner. Growth hormone is a growth signal. It tells your cells to multiply. The thing about a signal that tells cells to multiply is that it doesn't check whether that cell is healthy or if it's a tumor. The same biological switch that builds muscle can also feed cancer. And I don't think this is fringe paranoia. This is why the guidance is explicit that anyone with cancer or even an elevated cancer risk should totally avoid growth hormone peptides. Now layer on who's being sold this. A lot of the marketing out there is targeting people 60, 70, even 50 years old and up, because that's who often feels the age-related decline. But that's also exactly the age group with the highest baseline risk of cancer, of heart disease, of diabetes. So you're pouring a grow everything signal into a body that is statistically more likely to have something growing that you very much do not want to grow. As we age, our liver and our kidneys do clear these compounds, but they clear them more slowly. So they'll linger longer in our body. And most adults who are older are already on several medications, which multiplies the chance of a bad interaction. So the population that this marketing targets the hardest is the population that should be the most cautious. I think that inversion, that's the thing that I most want a caregiver watching this to understand. If you're helping your mom or dad or your spouse make health decisions and someone's pitching them growth hormone optimization, that is the moment to slow everything down and call their actual doctor. Now, let me show you the cards, because I promised I'd be honest about what might work, and that means that being honest, also when the hope doesn't pan out. In 2025, the most exciting peptide story, at least for me, and all across medicine, wasn't even on a wellness booth. It was a real and enormous clinical trial. The GLP-1 drugs that are the family that's like Ozempic and others, they had hints that they might protect the brain. So Novo Nordisk ran 2 huge trials, almost 4,000 people ages 55 to 85 with early Alzheimer's. The whole field was holding its breath. If a drug that millions already were taking for weight loss could slow dementia, that could change everything for all the families that I work with and study and help every day. The results came in at the end of 2025. Unfortunately, that drug did not slow Alzheimer's. There was no meaningful benefit on memory or function versus placebo. They saw a flicker in some biomarkers, but it didn't translate into a single person thinking more clearly. The company shut that extension down. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here. I'm just telling you this because it's a perfect lesson that's sitting right next to this whole peptide craze. Here was a peptide with real prior evidence, studied in the right way in thousands of people, and it came up empty. I think this is how often promising biology fails when you finally test it properly. And I think testing is the right way to go. So when a vial sold online promises you brain benefits, like more energy, anti-aging, recovery, and it's never been through anything that's been tested on thousands of people, ask how much of that promise is real data and how much of that is just false hope. Now, hope is not nothing. The Alzheimer's field right now is chasing all types of combinations, and I think the metabolic angle isn't dead yet. But hope and proof are totally different things, and your loved one's body is not a place to confuse them. Now, let's go back to Vegas, because I owe you the rest of that story. Those 2 women who left that anti-aging conference on ventilators, their tongues swelled, one couldn't even open her eyes, one totally lost control of the muscles in her neck. They survived, thank God. But here's a detail that should change how you think about this entire market. When the Nevada Pharmacy Board investigated, they could not even determine what caused it. Was it a peptide? Did they get an infection? Was there a contamination in the vial? They couldn't say because they were never able to obtain the actual product to test it. The evidence was just gone. The doctor running that booth wasn't even licensed to practice in Nevada. He and the pharmacist who mixed the shots were each fined $10,000. That's it. And at least one of the peptides involved was one that the FDA had specifically flagged as a safety risk. So that is the gray market that we're living in right now in one story. There's no standards. There's no way to know what's in the vial. No one to even hold accountable when it goes wrong. People online are describing migraines, crushing fatigue, depression, nausea. One person even reportedly started passing blood. And remember that testing lab. In thousands of samples, the dose on the label routinely didn't match the dose that was in the bottle. Research chemical isn't a category of safety. It's just a loophole. It's a way to sell you an injectable drug while skipping every test that's supposed to protect you. If you only take one thing away from this whole video, let it be this. A shot that you buy online, or from a booth, or from a clinic that won't show you a real prescription in a licensed pharmacy, that's a shot where nobody actually knows what's going into you or the person you love. There's a cousin to all this that you've definitely seen online, even if you didn't know the name, NAD+. You've even watched celebrities swear by it. I'm going to do NAD for the rest of my life and never age. Clinics offer it sometimes as an IV drip, and you sit there for a few hours and it costs anywhere from $200 to sometimes even $1,000. Let me be fair here because the underlying science is actually real. NAD+ is a genuine molecule that your cells use for energy and DNA repair. And its levels really do fall as we age. Serious scientists are studying it, so it's not snake oil. But here is the gap. In early 2026, researchers did a rigorous systematic review, the kind that pools all the credible studies together and asks coldly, what do we actually know here? For the NAD+ drips and these injections that are being sold for anti-aging, they found essentially no quality outcome trials showing they make you healthier or younger. None. So the underlying biology is promising, but the $1,000 drip for now is just mostly hope that's sitting on an IV pole. And think about who gets hurt the most by that. A 30-year-old influencer can burn thousands of dollars a month on a drip and call it a hobby. But I work with a lot of families who are caring for an aging parent, stretching every dollar. When that family spends grocery money on an unproven infusion because a celebrity said that it helps you with aging, I think that's not wellness, but that's a transfer of wealth from worried families to a marketing machine. I think your money is precious. Spend it where the evidence is. Here's a quick reminder. If this is helping you protect someone, subscribe and share it with your siblings or a friend that could be in the same boat. A lot of caregivers across America find this channel because other caregivers send it to them. Now back to the cabinet. I told you at the start, there's a peptide that might already be in your parents' kitchen right now. Here it is, collagen. That scoop of collagen powder that people are putting in their coffee. The collagen peptides on the label, that's a peptide. It's the friendliest, softest, and most harmless looking member of this entire family. And that's just why it matters. Collagen is the on-ramp. It's the product that taught millions of older adults and middle-aged people that peptide is a wholesome anti-aging word that you can just stir into your morning smoothie. Once that word feels safe and routine, the leap to an injectable peptide feels a lot smaller than it should. Now, I'm not here to scare you off your collagen. Honestly, it's potentially low risk, and a few studies suggest a modest bump in skin elasticity. If it makes you feel good and you can afford it, fine. The point isn't that collagen is dangerous, but the point here is the path. The marketing world's entire strategy is to take a word that feels safe in a powder and use that comfort to sell you something that comes in a needle from a vial with no regulatory oversight. Peptide, the same word, but wildly different risk. And I think that gap is the whole marketing game. So now you can see through it. So what do you actually do? If you're thinking about your own health or the person that you're caregiving for. 5 things, almost all of them are free. 1, separate the buckets. If a doctor prescribes a real FDA-approved peptide like a GLP-1 for a real condition, that's medicine with robust studies, different universe. The caution I'm expressing in this video is about unproven, compounded gray market. 2, whenever anyone pitches a peptide, ask the one question, where is the human evidence? You don't want to hear testimonials or a random podcast or a before and after, but a rigorous study, preferably in thousands of people. If the honest answer is just, well, it's in mice or people are feeling great, now you know your answer. You're taking a big risk. 3, never ever buy an injectable peptide online or from a booth. You never know where it comes from. A lot of these are coming from China. If a licensed physician and a licensed compounding pharmacy aren't both standing behind it with a real prescription, you may want to walk away. That Las Vegas story is what's on the other side of that door. 4, if the person that you care for or yourself are 50 or older, and especially if there's any history of cancer, heart disease, or a cabinet full of medications that they're taking right now, then treat that boost your growth hormone as a stop sign, not a green light. Call the doctor before anything goes into the body. 5, protect the money. Hope is expensive in this industry, and the people that are selling it are very good at it. Some of them are so good that they've started running fake AI-generated videos, even of me, to sell supplements out there, using my face to push things that I would never endorse. I never endorse or sell any product. So apply that same suspicion to every miracle shot that you see out there, including the ones that you think are real or maybe even coming from a celebrity or someone you trust. The honest bottom line here is a few of these peptides may someday prove genuinely useful. So the science isn't fake, and if I see robust data, I might change my mind when the evidence shows up. But someday maybe is not today in a vial from a stranger. Right now, I think the gap between what's promised and what's proven is enormous. And the people most likely to fall into that gap are exactly the people that I made this channel for, older adults and the families that are caring for them. You don't need a $1,000 IV drip to age well. I think the unglamorous things still beat everything in that vial. Moving your body, getting sunlight, proper sleep, spending time around people who love you. That's not what gets sold because no one makes billions of dollars off it, but it's true ancient human wisdom. If this helped you see through the noise, subscribe. I do this every day, every week for caregivers and share a lot of research behind it. And please send this to one person, a friend, a sibling, anyone caring for an aging parent or worried about their own health who might have seen these ads online and wondered. The next time someone they love is offered a miracle in a needle, this video might be the reason they pause and ask the one question that matters. And that pause could genuinely protect someone. Thank you for watching and for caring enough to want the truth.